for some reason, being human at this time on the planet, we moved away from that way of being. That way of being in relationship. That knowing that we have. You know, I keep going like this. I don't know where it is for you, but it's right here for me. It's like I've got a communication going on in my heart, and my, you would call it what, your chi or belly brain. Just like 1,000 different words for that knowing place. But in our culture, and it looks like some of you may not have been born in the United States, nonetheless the Western culture thing, it's huge. It's like this big giant Dramamine happens, right? Like 1,000 years ago, and everybody just went sheesh and popped up into our heads. And for a number of reasons, I like to blame Aristotle, myself, or anybody who thought objectifying anything was a good idea. I think it was a noble effort. But for what we're going to talk about today, I just kind of wanted to bring our attention to our bodies. First of all, I like to do any talk by inviting everybody to get all the way here. If you're not already, you seem really present. But just as an act of, a repetitive act of practice, self-discipline. There's a culture, hi Donna, there's a tribe that I don't know the name of, and I keep telling myself I'm going to remember it, and I never do, but nonetheless, this African tribe, when they greet each other, they say, "Are you here yet?" Can you imagine? Can you imagine going into like a board meeting, you're like, yay, we're going to sing, we're going to get some money, and we're going to sell the right stuff, and you're like all the other stuff, and you're like, "Are you here yet?" But you know what I mean. Don't you want that minute to go, oh, I'm in the car, I left my kids, my husband just broke up with me, I didn't get sex again, what am I doing? I don't know if I want to be here, I don't like that red on you, blah, 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 right? Like all this stuff going on. So, however you do that for yourself, and even if you're already here, get here-er. Okay, so I'm going to move on and kind of tell you for 2 seconds who I am, this lady in the red sweater who just had her husband introduce her. The fact that I have a husband in a healthy relationship is literally a miracle. And you're like, well, seriously? No, seriously, someone like me who has a healthy relationship, I always dreamed about it, but my background, my father was a convicted pedophile. And God, every time I say that, I always think it's going to be like saying, you know, the weather is outside is frightening. Yeah, my father was a convicted pedophile. He passed away. And he was beautiful and charming and lovely, and I loved my dad. And he loved me a little too much in the kind of the wrong, unhealthy way. And what happens when we have that extreme of abuse, you can call it whatever you want. Some people in the metaphysical community call it, I reincarnated back into a life to learn lessons, right? It doesn't matter how you have it, what happened after it happened, on some level, but really, for the sake of the conversation with me, our developmental years are critical. I don't think anybody would argue that. And when you're imprinted with that kind of story about sexuality, that's a tough one to break free from. And for a lot of people, they use it as a hall pass for a lot of behaviors that aren't so pleasant, you know. Or some people will now call it woundology. Yeah, in 5 minutes you say, yeah, mine was molested, my parents were alcoholics, how do you like me so far? Right? This is kind of how we're used to talking about ourselves. Well, for me, I remember the point somewhere, I think I was 16 years old, where I recognized that I wanted something more than this repetitive feeling like that life was happening to me. I wanted happily ever after, but I wanted to not want it more than I wanted it. Do you know what that feels like? Like you know that what's happening in life is screaming at you on the television everywhere you go, from everybody you know, but you want something else, but you're not exactly sure what that something else is, so let's call it free. That would be the word that I think I chose at 16 when I started on my little spiritual path, which turned into be the most sacred thing I've ever done. And all these years later, to bring you up to speed, every single thing I do, every word I utter in a group, I feel like is a privilege. To have your attention is my privilege. And I'm in such reverence to your vulnerability to show up and say, here's my mind. I'm going to fill it maybe with some stuff you're going to say, and I hope you do it with real care and a kind of precision that I'm not drooling or my eyes aren't rolling back in my head and I don't know where to put what you said. My point is I'm going to do my best to offer you 1, 2, or 3 things today that you can add to your existing practice that might inspire you to move away from suffering, to have more sacred sex, or to at least try on some of the things we're going to talk about, right? Like just try it on. Some of you are probably pretty sophisticated. You've been on a path for a while, but still, now I'm going to jump from like the kind of who I am as a relationship expert and devoted to helping people create sacred relationship via self-inquiry. Why I do that, you've heard my little bit of my story, because I wanted to be free from suffering. Instead of wanting immunity from pain, there's a difference. When I started the journey, and a lot of us on our journey, most of the choices we make are because we want immunity from pain. Do you know what I mean? Versus freedom from suffering. Is that clear to everybody, the distinction there? It's very subtle. One is to avoid pleasure or move away from pain, and one is to move towards bliss and joy and pleasure, right? It's a big difference, and to know from where you move in your life is important. So that's what I'm in service to. You finding more sacredness in your life, finding healthy, fulfilling, sustainable relationships via self-inquiry. Well, what's self-inquiry? Does everyone know what self-inquiry is? Do you have kind of an idea when I say that? Okay, right, like turning inward. The divine answers are inside of me, not at the psychic's office. I love psychics. I do. I just saw 3 of them this year all telling me something different. Right? Once again, we have to turn back to ourselves. Okay, so, hi, welcome. Okay, so looking to the topic, the thing that I'm here to offer you, my experience trying to avoid pain, find immunity from pain really, and now free from suffering. My husband stood up as a testament to a healthy relationship. I can remember about a decade ago, people started asking us, hey, are you guys for real? Are you really that happy? And I thought, man, there's so many, there's got to be other people in a relationship that's healthy. Does anybody know people that are in a really, really happy, thriving, right? It's attractive, right? So you want to be near it, but mostly don't you want to know how to do it, right? So you feel this feeling about it. Who actually here has a healthy, fulfilling, sustainable relationship? Great. And the rest of you are wanting it. Yeah. Would that be accurate? Okay. So, I was saying that my husband being a testament of my moving from trying to find immunity from pain, pardon my back, and freedom from suffering happened with some of the things I'm going to share with you. The least of which, interestingly, is creating more sacred sex. Which you'd think that would be the big driver. It usually fills the rooms. You put sex on anything. I could have put, how many times does it take to get to the center of a lollipop? Sex. And people wouldn't count. Mostly, right? It's a pretty big word. I'm sorry, you don't see what I'm seeing. I'm waiting for everybody to settle. Hi. Thank you. So, the idea of sacred sexuality is what we're here to talk about. Okay, so what is sacred sex?